So with any living soil recipe, most of the time nutrients are going to deplete, right? So unless it's quote a super soil to where it's a water only recipe, for example, of course it's going to depend on how long you veg the plants for, but some of them you can just do the initial mending and then you just water only for the rest of the cycle. Other recipes, which a majority of the recipes, the nutrients are going to deplete at some point. For those recipes, what organic inputs do you typically add in throughout the growth cycle, and when do you add them in?
Yeah, this tends to be a very hotly debated topic amongst agronomists and especially large scale agriculturists and horticulturists. I have a differing opinion. So there's two trains of thought when it comes to fertility and available nutrients. And just to kind of briefly describe the two different camps, well, and then there's kind of three, but there's one that's in the middle. So the far off to one side, I don't want to say right or left, but far off to one side is the Dr. Elaine camp, which I tend to be in. And that camp is, and that's based off of what I've learned in going through her foundation course material, and then also how that information laid over my experience and really helped connect a lot of dots. And so, according to Dr. Elaine, as long as you have adequate biology, once again, diversity and quantities, and aerobic, and you have adequate organic matter, that biology will be able to mine whatever nutrient, whatever mineral that crop needs, whether it's corn, potatoes, medicinal plants, tomatoes, herbs, any of that. Her body of work has led her to the conclusion that all nutrient needs for all plants can be met entirely and completely with biology and organic matter. And so if you go by that, then really all you need to do is keep track of your biology, make sure that your biology is flourishing, and make sure you've got plenty of organic matter. And if you follow those two rules, you'll be able to continuously crop without ever really having to amend. She goes as far as to say you don't even need to get a chemistry analysis. Now, when I say these words, I can see the heads exploding in your viewership right now, because there's lots of people who are going to say hogwash and they're going to fish shake at that. And I get it. I totally understand. For me personally, I started not understanding the soil food web, but just kind of trusting the process and really wanting to see how little I could do. How many variables can I exclude from my system and still pull off a viable crop? Not just a viable, but better than average, right? And I was experiencing that for years. Once again, you can go back into my YouTube and look at my first eight cycles, and I talk about these very things. I have not, in the over 10 years I've had my beds and the soil that I've had now, I've never done one chemistry analysis on my soil. And my yield numbers are the same from day one, from 10 years ago. They're the same. And all I've been doing for the past about 5 years is just adding compost or vermicompost or some kind of compost extract to my system to maintain biology, because I know my system has plenty of organic matter. So you can take that kind of ultra extremist biological approach to cultivation and you'll be just fine. I'm a testament to that. We've set up commercial cultivation facilities with the same ideology, and they do great. They do amazing. We've done large scale outdoor fiber and hemp crops that we've put nutrient blends in half of the acreage and then left the other half of the acreage without any nutrient whatsoever, just water and native soil, which was woefully inadequate with organic matter, and they produced the same. The yields were the same in one half of the field to the other. And we were adding, it was costing $550 an acre to add that nutrient. So over 100 acres, $55,000 that was not needed at all. We could have used that $55,000 anywhere else. The other half of the acreage that we didn't put the nutrient mix on did exactly the same. You could not tell the difference one field to the next, one row to the next. So that to me spoke volumes about the power of biology and the power of this soil food web. Now that being said, that doesn't do it for some folks. There's a lot of folks that are so tied into the chemistry part of it that they have to know the chemistry. And so that's the other side, is the people that completely ignore biology and only focus on chemistry. And you find that those are the people that are using the salt-based chemical fertilizers and pesticides and all those other things. They live in that camp. And somewhere in the middle is a guy named John Kemp, and his company is Advancing Ecological Agriculture. They're huge. They're gigantic. He firmly believes in the biological portion. He's actually been on podcasts with Dr. Elaine. They've had some really interesting conversations about the way there are two different takes on this. He is not ready to just drink the Kool-Aid and go 100% biology, even though he knows that the biology supersedes the chemistry in any kind of cultivation system. Biology will always supersede chemistry. And so what he's done with a lot of big conventional ag guys, is that he's come to the table and said, hey, look, let's focus on biology and then let's watch what happens to our chemistry. And so he's utilizing the data that conventional farmers have relied on for generations or for decades, right? This chemistry data, and exposing them to the biological data and saying, hey, look what happens when we marry these two. Look at the changes that take place. And he's done a really good job at convincing farmers that, one, they can remove certain things from their system because it's not beneficial. The biology is not present to process the raw amendment that you're putting down. You're just leaving money on the table, or you're literally letting it blow away in the wind. And so he's combining these two methodologies to really bring conventional ag into the fold. And then where he differs from Dr. Lane is that he says, hey, look, yeah, you can let the natural order drive cultivation and drive fertility, but if you're producing a cash crop and you are trying to maximize, you can drive that in an organic way while still keeping in mind what's happening with your biology and not doing anything that's going to have negative impact on that. So over the years, where I went from this very hardcore Dr. Elaine purist, wouldn't even tell a client to get a soil test or anything, now I kind of understand the John Kemp ideology, where it's really, like let's leverage the data that most people are relying on. They really want to see that chemistry data, and let's just kind of use that to kind of prove the concept of what's happening. And then you can drive your crop. You can drive your crop. I know Steve Cantwell, Good Life Productions, they do chemistry analysis, but they're still very heavily biologically focused. And one of my colleagues, Matt Davenport, with Amada Designs, he's very much the same way. I think he had a hand in designing GLP, and so I've really kind of eased off of that hardcore purist. Not when it comes to my personal grow. In my personal grow, I'm still very hardcore. I still don't do chemistry analysis. I still don't top feed or top dress anything that I think I might be missing. I just focus on my biology. My crops are great. My yields are great. I'm a happy camper. That just doesn't cut it for other folks. So if I work with somebody on a personal basis, or I'm working with a client that has a commercial grow, I'll introduce this kind of John Kemp or kind of a Matt Davenport or Steve Cantwell's kind of ideology, where, hey, look, let's take a peek at the chemistry. Let's see where we're at, and let's just make sure that we're at those numbers, because that makes everybody feel happy. And so I'm not opposed to that. So I don't have a lot of experience. It's kind of a long way around to answering your question. I don't have a lot of experience with adding amendments to systems because I've just been mainly focused on biological driven fertility systems. And I have no interest in, pushing my crop to yield 15% more by tweaking certain numbers. Not that it can't be done, just have no interest in it. And I've had really a great level of success just kind of being on that other extreme end. But that being said, there's lots of data and information and podcasts that people can digest. Like I highly recommend John Kemp. Anything that he's got is just really, I've learned so much from his material that it can scratch that itch. Once again, if you're the A type that really likes to be in charge and really likes to know everything that's going on, there's a methodology and a template for you to achieve that.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.